Analyzing the China-US trade war, 5 key phases from 2018 to 2023 and what lies ahead. Introduction. The China-US trade war, which officially began in July 2018, has significantly shaped global trade dynamics and international relations. This report analyzes the conflict's trajectory over 5 key phases from 2018 to 2023, highlighting essential events, negotiations, and the broader implications for both nations and the global economy. Overview of key phases. 1. Initial tariffs, July 2018 to December 2018. The trade war commenced with the United States imposing tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices. In retaliation, China placed tariffs on U.S. products. By September 2018, the U.S. expanded tariffs to $200 billion, escalating tensions further. 2. Attempts at negotiation in temporary truce, December 2018 to March 2019. A temporary truce was established during the G20 summit in December 2018, where both nations agreed to delay further tariffs. Early 2019 saw multiple rounds of negotiations, resulting in some commitments from China to purchase more U.S. agricultural products. 3. Escalation of tariffs, May 2019 to August 2019. In May 2019, the U.S. raised tariffs from 10% to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods despite ongoing negotiations. China responded with its own tariff hikes, leading to a cycle of retaliatory measures that intensified the trade conflict. 4. Phase 1 trade deal, January 2020. On January 15, 2020, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal, marking a significant turn in the conflict. The agreement included commitments from China to purchase an additional $200 billion of U.S. goods over 2 years and provisions related to intellectual property and technology transfer. While some tariffs were reduced, many remained in place. 5. Impact of COVID-19 and subsequent developments, 2020 to 2023. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the implementation of the Phase 1 deal, with both countries struggling to fulfill purchasing commitments. The Biden administration, which took office in January 2021, conducted a review of existing tariffs but opted for a cautious approach aiming to stabilize relations without fully rolling back tariffs. By 2022 to 2023, trade discussions continued, focusing on supply chain resilience and technology competition amidst significant global economic shifts. Common key points. Escalation and retaliation. The trade war was characterized by a tit-for-tat tariff strategy, indicating a profound lack of trust between the two nations. Negotiation efforts. Multiple rounds of negotiations occurred, showcasing a willingness to find common ground despite escalating tensions. Economic impact. The trade conflict had substantial repercussions for global supply chains, businesses, and consumers in both the U.S. and China. Differences between sources. Details on specific tariff amounts. While sources align on initial tariffs imposed, they exhibit slight discrepancies regarding specific retaliatory tariffs and the timing of negotiations. Interpretation of events. Some analyses focus on the political motivations behind tariffs and negotiations, while others prioritize economic impacts and data. Timeline of key events. July 6, 2018, U.S. imposes first round of tariffs. September 24, 2018, U.S. implements tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods. December 1, 2018, U.S. and China agree to a temporary truce. January 15, 2020, Phase 1 trade deal is signed. 2020 to 2023, ongoing evaluations of tariffs and trade relations amid the pandemic. Phase 1, initial tariffs, July 2018 to December 2018. The China-US trade war officially began on July 6, 2018, when the Trump administration imposed a 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese imports, claiming that such measures were necessary to combat theft of U.S. intellectual property and unfair trade practices. China quickly retaliated, imposing tariffs on a similar value of U.S. goods. This initiated a cycle of escalating tariffs, leading to a second round on September 24, 2018, which targeted $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, increasing the tariff rate from 10% to 25% by January 1, 2019. Both sides remained steadfast in their positions, with little indication of de-escalation. Phase 2 attempts at negotiation in temporary truce, December 2018 to March 2019. In December 2018, a breakthrough occurred during the G20 summit in Buenos Aires, where both nations agreed to a temporary truce. This resulted in a 90-day postponement of planned tariff increases, allowing for negotiations to take place. Early 2019 saw a series of high-level discussions during which China committed to purchasing more U.S. agricultural products, reflecting a willingness to engage in constructive dialogue. However, the underlying issues of intellectual property theft and trade imbalances persisted, hampering substantial progress. Phase 3 escalation of tariffs, May 2019 to August 2019. Despite ongoing negotiations, tensions escalated in May 2019 when the U.S. raised tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports from 10% to 25%. China responded with its own tariff increases, triggering a series of retaliatory measures. The conflict intensified as both nations engaged in a tit-for-tat strategy, leading to widespread concerns over the impact on global supply chains and economic growth. The escalation culminated in threats from both sides, with President Trump announcing potential tariffs on an additional $325 billion worth of goods. Phase 4 Phase 1 trade deal, January 2020. On January 15, 2020, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal, marking a pivotal moment in the trade war. The agreement sought to address key issues including intellectual property protection and technology transfer, while committing China to purchase an additional $200 billion worth of U.S. goods over 2 years. While the deal led to some tariff reductions, many tariffs remained in place, reflecting the complexity of the underlying issues. This phase was marked by cautious optimism, though challenges remained in the implementation of the agreement. Phase 5 Impact of COVID-19 and subsequent developments, 2020 to 2023. The COVID-19 pandemic profoundly affected the global economy and the implementation of the Phase 1 deal. Both nations struggled to meet their purchasing commitments due to supply chain disruptions and economic downturns. The Biden administration, which took office in January 2021, initiated a review of existing tariffs and trade policies. While there was a desire to stabilize relations, the administration opted for a cautious approach, avoiding a full rollback of tariffs. By 2022 to 2023, discussions continued, focusing on supply chain resilience and technological competition, reflecting the evolving nature of the trade relationship. Conclusion: the China-US trade war represents a complex interplay of economic policies, national interests, and geopolitical strategy, characterized by significant developments from 2018 through 2023. The ongoing implications for international trade relations are profound, with both nations navigating a path toward potential stabilization amid shifting global economic dynamics. As the world watches, the future of trade relations between these two superpowers remains uncertain, with essential lessons learned from the past phases of the trade conflict. The content provided outlines the key phases of the China-US trade war from 2018 to 2023, including a detailed timeline and analysis of the economic and political dynamics involved. Here are the counterintuitive insights drawn from the analysis. 1. Economic interdependence versus nationalism. Initially, one might expect that heightened tariffs would lead to a significant reduction in trade between China and the U.S. However, despite the imposition of tariffs, both countries continued to engage in extensive trade. For example, even during the height of the trade tensions, China's commitments under the Phase 1 deal included significant purchases of U.S. agricultural products, suggesting that economic interdependence persisted despite nationalistic rhetoric. 2. Impact of domestic politics. The timeline reveals that domestic political considerations heavily influence trade negotiations. While one might assume that economic rationality would dominate discussions, political posturing often took precedence. For instance, Trump's fluctuating stance on tariffs, where he would express regret one day and threaten to escalate tariffs the next, illustrates how domestic political pressures can lead to erratic policy decisions that do not necessarily align with economic logic. 3. Phase 1 deal is a strategic move. The signing of the Phase 1 trade deal in January 2020 is often viewed as a victory for both sides. However, an analysis of its implementation reveals that the deal was less about resolving core issues and more about providing a temporary pause in hostilities. The commitments made were ambitious, yet many were not fulfilled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighting how the deal may have served more as a political tool than a genuine resolution to trade imbalances. 4. Long-term consequences of tariffs. While tariffs were intended to protect domestic industries and reduce the trade deficit, they often resulted in retaliatory measures that hurt U.S. businesses and consumers. For example, the tariffs on Chinese goods led to increased prices for American consumers on a wide range of products, including electronics and clothing. This counterintuitive outcome challenges the notion that protectionist measures inherently benefit the domestic economy. 5. Continued engagement despite friction. The trade war led to a perception of a complete breakdown in U.S.-China relations, yet the timeline shows ongoing communication and negotiations throughout the conflict. High-level discussions continued even as tariffs were imposed, indicating that both nations recognized the necessity of maintaining dialogue, which counters the narrative of a total estrangement between the two powers. In summary, the China-US trade war serves as a complex case study of how economic policies are influenced by political dynamics and the resilience of economic ties amid rising protectionism. The counterintuitive insights highlight the multifaceted nature of international trade relations, where economic decisions are often overshadowed by political motivations. The China-US trade war, which has unfolded in distinct phases from 2018 to 2023, is a critical event that has reshaped not only the economic landscape of both nations but also the global trade dynamics. While many analyses focus on the major tariff announcements and the Phase 1 trade deal, several nuanced elements are often overlooked. Here are some significant aspects that merit attention, along with their implications. 1. Impact on global supply chains. One of the most significant yet often understated consequences of the trade war is its profound effect on global supply chains. Companies in various sectors have been compelled to re-evaluate their sourcing strategies to mitigate risks associated with tariffs and trade uncertainties. This has led to a notable shift in supply chains away from China as businesses seek alternatives in countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Significance: the reconfiguration of supply chains is not just a temporary adjustment, it represents a long-term trend that may permanently alter the landscape of global manufacturing. Businesses that fail to adapt may face increased costs and reduced competitiveness in the global market. Additionally, this shift could enhance the economic prospects of alternative manufacturing hubs, leading to a more diversified global supply chain network. 2. Technological decoupling. The trade war has spurred a broader technological decoupling between the US and China, particularly in sectors like telecommunications and artificial intelligence. The US has implemented restrictions on Chinese tech companies, notably Huawei, citing national security concerns. This has led to a bifurcation of technology ecosystems, with distinct standards and regulations emerging in the US and China. Significance: the technological divide could hinder innovation and collaboration in critical areas such as AI and 5G, ultimately slowing global technological advancement. Furthermore, companies operating in both markets may face increased compliance costs and operational challenges as they navigate differing regulatory landscapes. 3. Intellectual property (IP) protections. While the Phase 1 trade deal included provisions aimed at enhancing IP protections, the enforcement mechanisms remain ambiguous. The US has long criticized China for its lax IP enforcement and forced technology transfers. The trade war has brought these issues to the forefront, yet the actual implementation of stronger IP protections in China has been inconsistent. Significance: the lack of robust enforcement mechanisms undermines the efficacy of the IP provisions in the trade deal. Companies that invest in innovation may hesitate to enter the Chinese market due to concerns about IP theft and inadequate protections. This could stifle creativity and investment in sectors where intellectual property is crucial, such as pharmaceuticals and technology. 4. Political ramifications. The trade conflict is deeply intertwined with broader geopolitical tensions between the US and China. The trade war has become a focal point in discussions about national security, economic power, and global leadership. The narrative surrounding decoupling reflects a growing sentiment that the US and China are destined to be rivals not just economically but politically and militarily. Significance: this geopolitical framing can have far-reaching consequences, including increased military tensions and a potential arms race in technology. Countries around the world may find themselves pressured to take sides, leading to a fragmented international order that could complicate global governance and cooperation on pressing issues like climate change and public health. 5. Consumer impact and sentiment. The trade war has had a direct impact on consumers, particularly in the US, where tariffs have often resulted in higher prices for goods. This has led to a growing sentiment of discontent among consumers who feel the burden of the trade conflict. The narrative of America First may not resonate as strongly when consumers see their costs rising. Significance: as consumer sentiment shifts, there could be political repercussions for leaders who champion the tariffs. A backlash against rising prices may lead to calls for policy adjustments or even a re-evaluation of the trade war strategy altogether. Understanding consumer perspectives is crucial for policymakers navigating the complexities of trade relations. Conclusion: the China-US trade war is a multifaceted issue with implications that extend beyond tariffs and trade agreements. The shifts in global supply chains, the decoupling of technology ecosystems, the challenges of enforcing intellectual property rights, the geopolitical ramifications, and the impact on consumers collectively reshape our understanding of international trade dynamics. Recognizing these often overlooked elements is essential for a comprehensive analysis of the trade conflict and its future trajectory. As the situation continues to evolve, stakeholders must remain vigilant and adaptable to the changing landscape of global trade. 1. Escalation and retaliation dynamics. The China-US trade war dramatically illustrates the consequences of escalating trade tensions through retaliation. The tit-for-tat tariff strategies employed by both countries reflect deep-rooted mistrust and the fragility of international trade relationships. Analyzing how these retaliatory measures shaped the economic landscape and affected global supply chains is crucial for understanding the broader implications of trade wars on international relations. 2. Negotiation efforts and outcomes. The various phases of negotiation, particularly during the initial truce and the Phase 1 trade deal, provide insights into the complexities of diplomatic negotiations in a trade context. Examining the successes and failures of these negotiations, including the commitments made by China to purchase U.S. goods and the implications of the Phase 1 deal, can reveal the effectiveness of diplomatic strategies in resolving trade disputes and the challenges that remain. 3. Impact of external factors. The COVID-19 pandemic played a significant role in altering the trajectory of the trade war, complicating the implementation of agreements and exposing vulnerabilities in global supply chains. Analyzing how external shocks such as the pandemic influence trade relations and policy decisions can provide a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of global economies and the adaptive strategies nations must employ in response to unforeseen challenges. 4. Long-term economic implications. The trade war has had lasting effects on both the U.S. and Chinese economies as well as on global trade dynamics. Understanding the long-term economic implications such as shifts in supply chain strategies, changes in consumer behavior, and the potential for a new economic order is vital for predicting the future of international trade relations. Discussions surrounding technological competition and supply chain resilience will be key areas of focus moving forward. 1. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930. This U.S. legislation raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods in an effort to protect American industries during the Great Depression. The act led to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, exacerbating the economic downturn and contributing to a significant decline in international trade. 2. The European Union's Common Agricultural Policy (CAP) and U.S. countermeasures. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, tensions arose between the U.S. and the EU over agricultural subsidies. The U.S. argued that the CAP distorted trade, leading to a series of disputes at the World Trade Organization (WTO). The U.S. imposed tariffs on certain EU products, prompting retaliatory measures from the EU. 3. The U.S.-Canada softwood lumber dispute. This ongoing trade conflict, which began in the late 1980s, centers around tariffs imposed by the U.S. on Canadian softwood lumber. The U.S. claimed that Canadian lumber was being sold at unfairly low prices due to government subsidies, leading to a series of tariffs and countertariffs, as well as numerous legal battles at the WTO and NAFTA. Future outlook. Predictions for the China-U.S. trade war post-2023. As the global economic landscape continues to evolve, the China-U.S. trade war, which has significantly influenced international trade dynamics since its inception in 2018, is likely to enter a new phase beyond 2023. Here are several predictions concerning the future trajectory of this trade conflict and its broader implications. 1. Continued economic decoupling. The trend of economic decoupling between China and the United States is expected to persist. Both nations are likely to continue diversifying their supply chains to reduce dependence on each other. The U.S. may further encourage companies to relocate manufacturing out of China to countries like Vietnam and India, while China may seek to bolster its domestic industries and reduce reliance on U.S. technology. This decoupling could lead to the development of parallel supply chains, impacting global trade patterns. 2. Technological competition intensification. The competition for technological supremacy will become a significant focal point in the China-U.S. relationship. With ongoing concerns about cybersecurity, intellectual property theft, and the race for leadership in emerging technologies such as AI, quantum computing, and 5G. Both countries will likely invest heavily in research and development. The U.S. is expected to impose stricter export controls on critical technologies, while China will ramp up its efforts to achieve self-sufficiency in tech sectors. This technological rivalry could result in a bifurcation of technological standards and ecosystems, affecting global companies and markets. 3. Shift in global trade alliances. As tensions between the U.S. and China continue, countries around the world may be compelled to reassess their trade alliances. Nations in Asia, Europe, and beyond might seek to navigate a middle path, capitalizing on opportunities from both superpowers while avoiding the direct fallout of their disputes. Regional trade agreements like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP) may gain importance as countries look to strengthen ties with one another to mitigate dependence on either China or the U.S. 4. Potential for new trade agreements. Despite the ongoing tensions, there remains the possibility for new trade agreements that could help stabilize the relationship. The Biden administration may explore avenues for cooperation in specific sectors such as climate change and sustainable trade practices. Efforts to negotiate agreements addressing mutual interests like agricultural trade, environmental standards, and labor rights could pave the way for a more stable economic relationship, even as tariffs remain on certain goods. 5. Impact of domestic politics. Domestic political considerations in both countries will play a crucial role in shaping trade policies. In the U.S., upcoming elections and shifts in political power could lead to changes in trade strategy, affecting the implementation or rollback of tariffs. Similarly, in China, the CCP's priorities will heavily influence its trade approach, especially as it seeks to align economic policies with national security interests.
public sentiment regarding economic conditions, employment,
and national pride will drive both governments' decision-making processes. 6. Resilience of global supply chains. The trade war has already encouraged businesses to rethink their supply chains, and this trend is likely to continue. Companies are expected to focus on building resilience by diversifying suppliers, investing in automation, and adopting digital technologies. As firms adapt to a landscape shaped by tariffs and geopolitical tensions, the focus on supply chain resilience will not only impact U.S.-China relations but will also redefine global supply chain strategies.
7. Long-term economic consequences.
The long-term economic consequences of the trade war will continue to manifest, particularly in the form of increased costs for consumers and businesses.
Tariffs may remain in place and new barriers could emerge, leading to inflationary pressures and altered consumption patterns. Both economies may face slower growth as businesses adjust,
and the global economy may experience a shift as trade volumes and investment flows are redirected.
Conclusion. The China-US trade war has reshaped the global economic landscape in profound ways.
As we look beyond 2023, the interplay of technological competition, economic decoupling, and shifting alliances will define the future of international trade. While the potential for cooperation exists, particularly in addressing shared challenges, the underlying tensions and strategic competition between the two economic powerhouses will continue to pose significant challenges for policymakers and businesses alike.
The path forward will require nuanced strategies that balance national interests with the realities of a rapidly changing global economy.